Today we're going to transform my sketchbooks into something more pleasing, and we'll get something like this. So stay tuned here on Bette's Makes. Hi, today I wanted to make something really pretty. So I was following a tutorial on YouTube just to do a quick background. And so I wanted kind of this door or a window that you could look through and see really beautiful trees. So what you see here me is just following along on the tutorial that I found online. And it's just a really quick, simple design that I did while I was waiting and trying to plan things out. So this is the first step. Just draw something, or you can even download something online. You find a pretty picture, maybe you see this pretty picture of like mountains in the background, or maybe like a seaside, something that you want to see outside of your window or your door, whatever you're planning on putting on the front of your sketchbook or notebook. So as you can see here, I'm just quickly drawing something out. The next step after this is I have to figure out what kind of things I want to see in my on my sketchbook, and that will take us over to the design space. So we're here now in design space, and I am going to make a new file, and I've decided that I wanted to do some windows, so it's pretty easy. My sketchbook is about 8.5 inches tall to 5.5 inches wide. So here I'm just grabbing out a square and I'm changing the dimensions to this rectangular bit to be the size of the front of my sketchbook. So I think I've decided that I wanted to do a window here, and so now I'm going to grab a couple other squares. I'm going to grab some more squares here, and then I'm not really sure what sizing I want, so I'm kind of just playing around, changing and unlocking the square there just so I can eyeball generally the kind of square I want. And so I'm going to duplicate it and drag another one down, drag one down to the bottom, and I think I'm going to drag one up to the top there. I'm fairly new at Design Space, even though I help run the blog. I keep extra clicking and stuff. So here I'm just trying to figure out the spacing I want, and generally just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. So to duplicate a square, I'm just holding down the Alt key and dragging it, and then I'm counting to make sure I have all the same amount of squares, because I think I pressed Alt a couple extra times and I didn't mean to. So I'm trying to figure out now, I'm selecting them all by clicking the Shift key and then clicking on the squares, and then I'm just going to distribute them horizontally, which was probably the wrong button to do. So I'm just trying to figure out on my own what I have to do. I might have looked up a couple of tutorials on Bette's Makes here just to clarify some of the things that I have to do. And then I'm doing the other side. I'm centering those, and then I'm aligning them. And then I was like, I'm not sure if I like the spacing so much here. And then I'm just kind of just eyeballing it from this point and just trying to find the perfect centering for everything that I need to do. And then making sure that all the squares are all lined up. At this point, I wasn't quite sure the spacing wasn't all that good. So I selected them all again. I centered them. I pressed horizontally, and then I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to do it vertically. And that gave me the spacing I needed. So I did the same on the other side, and it turned out to be what I was looking for. So at this point in time now, I need to slice out these windows from the background, and I remember how to do that. So I selected the square and then realized that I had to drag and click just two items. I went down over to slice, at the bottom, and then I was like, oh, I remember, and then I dragged those two pieces apart. Then I clicked on the background and then arranged and sent it to the back. And then I did the same for the top square there, and then you'll just see me doing that over and over again until the entire background is finished. So now that it's finished, I'm going to take one of these squares, and the background's done, but now I want to have it sort of sticking out from the sketchbook. So I'm taking one of those squares that I had cut out, and I'm eyeballing a little border around it, and I'm unlocking it, and then I'm going to drag it down, and I'm going to try to fit it right within where I need it to be. So it was generally the first four I wanted on the top window, and then I want another border around the bottom window, so it's like a the door is kind of popping out at you, so it looks like the window is sitting within the wood or whatever material that you want it to be out of. So I'm doing the same thing with the next square, and I am just going to repeat what I did, except for this time it's going to be the inner part, because it has to have the window cut out so you can see through it. So you can just see me figuring out what I'm doing here. So after I removed the background piece, I've noticed that the squares needed to be a little more centered. So I'm just sort of eyeballing it here, and I believe I'm quite pleased with what it looked like. So now I think I'm going to slice that out. So after I sliced it out, I'm going to duplicate it and drag the piece up. And I'm bringing back over the back piece so I can see what these pieces look like on top. I'm just eyeballing it and seeing if it looks good. It looks fairly good, and I am going to take both of those pieces and just kind of play with the sizing a little bit until it looks like it's equal. And I'm pretty pleased with that, so then I'm going to grab them both, go over to the combine menu and unite them so they're one piece. Then I'm going to drag the other piece again, the back piece again over to there, and I'm just going to see if I need to change any of the things, and it doesn't look like I do. So now I'm taking another one of those cutout squares and unlocking it and making really thin pieces to make it look like there's pieces of wood coming out. The resizing here is really weird, so then I decided I was going to play in with the size menu instead of dragging it, and I'm typing in numbers to find the height I want. That one was a little bit big, so I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller just until it nestles into that window and it looks pretty decent. So now I'm going to press the Alt key and duplicate it and drag it up and fit it into the top part of the window. So here I'm still eyeballing it a little bit and trying to figure out if it looks good. And I'm going to pull another piece out and rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to put it back over to the window, and I have to put the little pieces that are going in between each window. So they're going to be small cuts. So I'm just changing the length until it fits into that little section there. And once I'm happy with the size, then I'm going to duplicate it a little bit. At this point, I'm generally pleased. I might make it a little bit smaller, line it up again, and that looks good. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to press and hold the Alt key down and duplicate it for the other side, and then I'm going to duplicate it again for the two bottom windows. Now I'm just spending a bit of time staring at it, trying to see if it looks good, seeing if I need anything else, and then I'm centering the middle pieces. And then I decided it's not wide enough, so I'm just going to make it wider here using the sizing at the top. And happy with that, I'm just going to put the same size in the bottom one. At this point, I'm pretty pleased with what I have. After looking at it for a while, I was like, I think that outer one isn't big enough. So I'm taking the square and I'm remeasuring, redoing another square on the outside. Just making sure that the outer border is a little bit thinner than it was before. So I'm going to move that off to the side. Going to delete all of these extra squares that I don't need, just so that my workspace isn't messy. And then I'm going to move these off to the side, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here. So I'm going to place that in the center of that square I had just made, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it a little bit thick. So I think I'm just going to use this piece as a template, and I'm going into the shapes menu and I'm going to grab another square. I'm going to place that square just on the inside where I want the two pieces to be. So I'm using that middle piece as a template, and I'm just stretching it out. And then I'm going to press the Alt key and duplicate that window and drag it down. I'm going to select that other piece there, and then I'm going to select both that new square and one of the old squares and press the slice menu. And then I'm going to click on that shape and arrange it to bring it to back, and then select both of those items again and use the slice menu, and then drag those squares off. And now I don't need any of those pieces, so I'm going to get them off my window, and I no longer need that piece either. So now I am pretty pleased with all the things I have. So now I'm going to press on Make It. And then I'm going to save my project, and I'm going to call it something like sketchbook door or sketchbook window. I think when I started this, I wanted it to be a door. And then I'm going to scroll down until I can find my stuff and save it in that collection. Now we're going over to the mats, and There's only one mat, but I don't like the way it's turned out. I have to cut everything out of a 8.5 by 11.5 sheet of cardstock, so I'm just going to move that to a different one, and I'm just colored the mat because I wanted to. And then I'm going to move all of these other pieces to that mat as well. I'm only doing it one at a time. I didn't realize when I had just started this that I could drag and select them both, but I think I figured it out by the time I dragged in the second piece. I'm rotating this because I'm just going to cut it out of the cardstock that I have, so I'm not wasting as much paper. I'm going back to the other mat, and I clicked the one and I went moving it into the mat. And then at this point I was like, oh, I think I can drag and select them, all three of them, which I could. So I was pretty pleased with that, and I moved that to that mat, dragged those and moved them up there. I don't know why I separated like that. And then I'm going to click on continue. So it's just waiting for my maker to come up, and then I'm going to print everything out on the cardstock that I wanted, and then I will meet you over at the design table. So now we're here at the demo table, and as you can see, I have everything I need cut out. I have an extra sheet here that I'm just going to get rid of. And I have my piece of acetate cut out, all my string papers and my digital papers. So the first thing I want to do is glue this digital painting on the sketchbook. So I'm just going to grab my glue here, and I'm going to take a paintbrush as well, and I'm going to just brush on the glue on the outside of the sketchbook. I'm going to grab that digital piece of paper, that digital painting I did, and I'm going to glue it down on the book. And smooth it out, just make sure it's stuck down proper. I'm just going to set that off to the side, and now I am going to grab my background windows. Now, white on white didn't really look all that good, so I thought maybe I can make this really pretty. So I grabbed out a couple of distress inks, and I'm using Tattered Rose for the background color. So I'm just going to use my little applicator here with the piece of foam on it, and I'm just going to go around the whole background and make this door like a nice Tattered Rose pinky color. Now I'm going to take the Lost Shadow color, and I'm going to make this other one gray in color. Now my Lost Shadow distressed ink was a little low on ink, so I'm pressing rather hard to get some inks up onto the pad on my applicator. At this point in time, I'm also going to do the other short pieces in the same color, and I'm going to make them this nice lost shadow gray to put on top. Well, now when I'm done with the gray, I want to add a bit of that tattered rose in with the gray so it kind of blends in with the back wood of the door. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of lightly dabbing it in and just making that pink kind of show up on the places where it kind of needs to pick up that background color. So now I'm going to grab my sketchbook and I'm going to glue the rectangular piece of acetate that I had so it looks like my window is an actual window. So I'm just going to grab out my glue, line it up a bit, then grab up the glue and then just glue it down to the page. Now it's a glitter glue and it's all right if we can see through. Obviously it's going to dry clear anyways. So the next step here is to start building my window. So now I'm going to just measure that and then I'm going to grab up my glue and I'm going to flip that over and just do a line of glue all along the edges. Fairly thick bead. And now I'm just going to glue that on top over the acetate there and line it up. So the great thing about this glue is that it doesn't dry right away. It just gives a little bit of lead time to move things around and to make sure everything is where it needs to be. So you can see me pressing it down with my fingers and then just slightly moving it a little bit and lining things up. Then I'm going to take the other piece, just kind of lay it over top and figure out where I'm going to place it, and then apply some more glue and then glue that down onto the sketchbook. And once that's glued in place, I'm going to take my other pieces. I'm going to take the longer pieces, just apply a bit of glue down the middle, and then put them in where the window cross pieces should be. Fairly easy, just lining it up, placing it in, and I'm going to do the same with the other one. Now, at this point in time, I'm not quite pleased with it, so I'm taking some of that soot black and the paintbrush that I had from before, and I'm going to dip it into the ink pad, and then I'm just going to go around some of the edges where, you know, grime might collect on a window, adding a bit of shadow and just making those pieces pop just a little bit with a bit of black distressed ink. Now, I could have put butterflies on in between the acetate and the digital paper, but I didn't really want to do that. So I have all these butterflies out here that I was thinking, maybe I should put a couple butterflies on. And I'm going through all the butterflies that I have, and I'm trying to decide which butterfly I like best and going through them. So I like the big butterfly here. So I'm just going to take that piece of paper and cut out one of the butterflies. At this point, I've decided I wanted to put it in that second window down. So I'm just adding a bit of glue, and then I'm just going to put it on top of the acetate there and just glue it in place. And with that, we are finished our window.